Welcome back. The United Nations have formally taken cognizance of the violence against Hindus and other minorities and tribal people in Bangladesh, especially in the Chittagong Hill Tract. The UN issued a strong statement calling for immediate action to protect the indigenous tribal people who have been subjected to violence, forced displacement and systematic marginalization. UN has also issued the statement saying that the Bangladesh government must act. Now let me straight away go to Suhas Chakmar, someone who is following entire chain of events in the Chittagong Hill Tract in Bangladesh, who actually ensured that the atrocity which took place a couple of weeks ago was brought to light, to the world's attention, that the changes in Bangladesh has brought about. So Suhas, to you, this focus by UN on this issue, how do you see it?
I think it's a very strong statement. It's not easy to get an official statement from the United Nations. So when the two experts of the United Nations and one who is the chairman of the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues had decided and actually call a spade, saying that, this is happening because of the marginalization which has been taking place, and also absolute impunity which the security forces enjoy. I think it's a welcome step. I mean, for the world to recognize that, if you read this sentence somewhere where they quote Article 7 of the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, they refer to genocide and acts of violence. And it's a fact that, hill tribes in the Chittagong Hill Tracts had faced genocidal attacks. Massacres after massacres were committed from the 1980s. And at one point of time, there were about 72,000 people who had crossed the border and sought refuge in Tripura. In none of those cases, accountability has been established. And in fact, the recent attacks which took place on 19th and 20th September, a committee was set up which was supposed to submit its report within 15 days, and the committee still has not visited. So the UN is actually reiterating the history on the government of Bangladesh.
Yunus has emerged as a soft face of Jamaat in Bangladesh. People thought maybe a very liberal person has come. Maybe his presence would spawn liberal tendencies in the upper echelons of governance. But instead, it seems that his presence emboldens the fringe in the system.
Well, absolutely. I think one particular problem, which the activists, the people who are focusing on human rights violation face at this point of time is Yunus has a liberal image, especially in the West. Now, if you look at the entire record of Yunus, he is somebody who is actually challenging each of the liberal principles of a democracy with some liberal ideas. So at some point of time, I think the world is going to come across and tell Yunus that you are not somebody which you had hoped for. So for the time being, I think he can continue for a month or so. But 100 days down the line, he is not going to survive. He has been exposed. And if you look at the tendencies of this government today, if you look at not only the fringe element, he is actually the leader of the fringe element. So if you look at the student leader, Nahid, saying that there was no liberation in Bangladesh, and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is not the father of the nation, and you had Salim Samad, who is actually supposed to be a bit more liberal than the others. If you look at it, then you could see that this country had been actually already taken over by the Jamaati Islami and all the Islamic forces. All the advisors of Yunus from the back are actually people who belong to Islamic Chhatra Shibir. And at certain point of time, I think the BNP and Awami League are going to find it very difficult. His task is to conduct election. Imagine he's reforming.
Instead of conducting election, Yunus is getting the constitution rewritten. In one of my conversations, I tried to understand why is this happening, and the sense I got was that even the contribution of Mujibur Rahman will be rewritten, challenged. A different official history would be written. It's like the communists have taken over in a different sense, But in my view, that is not going to survive.
I mean, I think what he is doing at this point of time, he is trying to survive as long as possible. He knows fully well that there is an elected government tomorrow. All the reform initiatives which have been taken by Yunus can be set aside. If I am BNP, if I come to power with two-thirds majority, I can rewrite the constitution. Or even if I come to power with simple majority, I can ask other parties to join the constitutional reform process. So what is the mandate of these people? There was a revolution. There was a violence reaction. Then, people could have died if Hasina insisted on, or if the military had used force. Then she left the country, fled the country. And you come back to stabilize the situation. Instead of stabilizing the situation, you are trying to start a system where Jamaat Islami would come to power, but the BNP and the Army League will be out. And take it from me that he will face two problems. One, that very soon, 6 months down the line, when it completes 6 months, Awami League and the BNP may come together to hold joint protest demanding elections, because they are not going to accept at certain point of time somebody who is not elected. And second thing I want to tell even today, the people who are serving in the interim government, they shall have to flee. They are not the people who are going to remain in power forever.
Okay.
They themselves shall be prosecuted
because
of many of the things which are happening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chakmar, because I know there's so many things to talk, from the Chittagong hill track to the problem of the Chakmas to the puja pandals that got hit. But the man at the center of the controversy is Muhammad Yunus, who instead of protecting the liberal sentiments in the politics has ended up reinforcing the Islamists in Bangladesh.